Alright guys, so LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga. Now this has been delayed, 3-4 times at this point, but it's finally out. Alright, and so this is a first impressions video. I've played a wee bit, I've messed around, seen what there is to see, and I'm gonna tell you what I think of the game right now. Obviously I haven't finished it, it's a first impressions video, and then once I finish it, you know how this works, we'll make that review and tell you my full thoughts with the score and all of that. So we'll try to keep this short, but it'll probably end up being 20 minutes long, like it always is. But let's get started. So LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga, in possibly the shortest possible explanation, is exactly what it needs to be and too much at the same time. And so let me break down what all of that means. And again, in my full review, we'll get more into it. But it's a LEGO game, right? You run around, you punch stuff, you collect your studs, you play through the movies, blah, blah, blah. You fight enemies, and yes, there's a new combat system and cover mechanics and aiming. You have to actually aim. But really, at the end of the day, it's a LEGO game, right? You don't need to use these, insane combos. It's nothing difficult, right? It's a LEGO game for kids. That's what I'm trying to get to. Alright, now I'm not saying that there isn't variety in combos there that you can choose, and a lot more than just pressing X like you could in the original games, but that's definitely still an option. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. All of these big combat gameplay changes they talk about, they're there and you can choose to use them or not. And that's, kind of how it goes for a lot of the new systems, right? There's a lot of small improvements here that if you haven't played a LEGO game in a long time, you're not going to notice. Perhaps the biggest one for a maniac like me that likes True Jedi, right? To collect all the studs throughout the level and get that achievement of saying you reached the X, default amount that was preset for each level. If you like stuff like that, there's small changes, like you automatically have the ability to, have the studs be magnetized to the character. Whenever you destroy something, there's a single stud that comes out of the object that you can collect to not have to run around and pick up all the studs off the ground. Just small improvements like that, and I haven't played a LEGO game in a while, so this might be commonplace for a LEGO game, right? I don't know, it's been a while since I've played a LEGO game, but just small improvements like that since the original that really, they're not drastic gameplay changes, but they do make small improvements here and there. I mean, I played relatively recently the original LEGO Star Wars, and it is a pain when you destroy something and you gotta run around and pick up all the individual studs. But here, it's all magnetized, you just get relatively close and it picks it up. So that's one of the small improvements that have been made, along with others. Now, that's it for the gameplay. Everything else pretty much functions the same. Like I said, Force has been improved, and there's the combos here and there. But it's a LEGO game. It's nothing too complicated. There's these false sense of choices, like every game does, where it gives you these, you can go this route or this route. But at least from what I've gotten to so far, for the most part, they don't result in anything too drastically different. It's not like you're missing out on a chunk of a level. The one they've shown off, as to not spoil anything I'll talk about in a trailer, is on the first level in New Hope in the original trilogy, which is where I started, as you can see here. And you can choose to either build a laser cannon and kill all of the enemies that are in your way, or put out a fire, which leads to a vacuum seal that you can open up and suck everybody out the airlock, right? And you achieve the same path, it's just how you choose to deal with the enemies, nothing too drastically different. So there is that sense of choice, I guess, and replayability, but at least in my experience so far, you can oftentimes do one path and then break the object you built and do the other path also, so you don't have to go back through and replay the whole level. Now, so that's it for the gameplay. As for the story, it's Star Wars, right? I'm not gonna break down the entire 9 Star Wars movies and tell you the plot, because you've seen them probably if you're playing this, I would assume. And it does its thing. It has its set number of levels in each chapter, in each movie, and it goes through and it pretty much summarizes, well, this is what happens and this is what happens. And there are levels that are repeated from the original games, but then there's levels that are new here. For example, I believe in the original LEGO game, in A New Hope, just to stick non-spoilery, because I feel like that's what they've shown the most of. In the original LEGO game, there's a mission where you're inside of the Jawa's little vehicle thing, and you're playing as the droids. That's not here. And while there are levels like this first one when you get boarded by the Empire that are technically telling the same plot point and identical to the original game, it's not the same beat for beat level, right? So it is changed to a certain extent, some levels being completely new and unique and some just being kind of a redesign of what you've already seen. So if you've seen a lot of the review scores for this game, there's a lot of 9s and 10s coming in, right? And while those are all from the big publishers, IGN, GameSpot, stuff like that, my problem with this game is that it feels, and I talked about this a bit in the intro to the video, it doesn't feel that it can justify its $60 price tag. Now, what do I mean by that? So typically, if you played the Lego Star Wars game as a kid and that's what you played and you pretty much fell off playing them, maybe by the time the complete saga came out, like in the Wii era, and then you haven't really touched it since then. That's my personal experience with it. But if you've played a lot of the new Lego games, you know that they're open world and they have all these open world activities. It's much like an Ubisoft game, and we'll come back to that in a minute. But it's very just linear, the way it used to be, right? It tells you it was 6 levels per movie, and you play your 6 levels, and maybe they have like a hub where you can customize some characters and buy some stuff, blah blah blah, but that's it, right? And they had some like special levels where you like tried to collect studs and stuff, but there wasn't a whole open world system, right? Well, that's all changed here, and I've played like the DC superheroes and the Avengers Lego games and stuff like that, where they do have these open world systems, and none of them have felt as overwhelming as this. And this comes from somebody, if you're a newer audience member and you're coming in from a Lego game, right? You might think that, oh, this dude's just an idiot, right? He plays Lego games. Well, this is from someone, I've played Elden Ring, I did everything in Assassin's Creed, and that's an Ubisoft game. You know how much clutter there is on that map? I did everything there is to do. And this game has the same problem. So, instead of just giving you there's 9 movies, 6 levels per movie, let's say, that puts you to 54 levels, 20 minutes a level. So instead of just giving you your runtime there, right, and just letting that be the runtime of the game and going through that way, what they choose to do is, they still have obviously all 9 movies with the individual levels telling the stories, blah blah blah, is they have a whole open world system with planets you can go to, and each planet has a hub, which is an open world area, keeping it non-spoiler and sticking to A New Hope. The canteen in Mos Eisley, that's the hub on Tatooine, right? But there's multiple hubs on each planet. That's just the starting hub, and each have all these side missions and puzzles and exploration things that you can do, right? I mean, talk about a typical open world game, right? We'll just use, like I've been talking about recent games, Assassin's Creed Valhalla and like Cyberpunk. There's a lot to do in those games. You can spend, like I said, 100+ hours in each of them just doing all of the stuff that there is to do in the world. The difference between Lego Star Wars and those games is the gameplay, right? You can have a billion things to do. If your gameplay is not engaging, I don't care. Right? Now, like I talked about earlier with the combat and how all of the promotion seems to have been focused around, the combat is improved, and there's like a dodging system, and it's more refined, and you can like throw your lightsaber much better. It's not just like hold X and get the stupid little cursor like you used to. It is all refined much better than the original game. But I'm not going to spend hundreds of hours running around on Tatooine accepting side missions from people in the cantina. Like, that's just not my thing. I want to go through, play the movies, and I'm good. That's all I need here. I don't need this massive open world with all of these puzzles and side missions. I mean, there's a point I open the map. This is from my stream. If you haven't watched that, you just want to see some straight up gameplay, go watch that. But this is from my stream. There's a point where I open the map and it tells you how many puzzles are in the area you're in and side missions and all that. And there's like 100 and something side missions, and then a whole bunch of puzzles, and then all of this stuff, right? And that's cool if that's your thing, but I don't think they've realized their audience here. Because yes, people who aren't kids are going to play this, especially since it's a Star Wars game, right? And especially since it's technically kind of a remaster of an old game you played as a kid, right? But the people who are interested and are going to play any of those side missions and stick to a game that long and commit to all of that content are not the people that are going to be playing this game this long, right? The people that are going to go through and like to do all of the side missions, all of the puzzles, all of the exploration on 100% games are typically not like your 6-year-old kids that this gameplay is geared for, right? People that want to go through and do all of that stuff are going to be bored of this gameplay and they're not going to be interested, right? And at the beginning it'll be fine, right? And there's gonna be people like, oh, you're wrong, it's so much fun. That might be fine, like going through Tatooine and doing those 100 side missions, but when you get to the next planet and you gotta do 100 more, that's when you're gonna get bored, right? And so circling back around to the $60 price tag, just the movie levels themselves I think is plenty for that $60 price tag. Circle back around to Assassin's Creed, right? I spent like 111 hours or whatever I say in my review of that game, and there's a lot of just shit around the world to do that's just stupid, right? There's collectibles and stuff, which it's not the same type of game, right? That makes sense. It's an open world, the combat's really good, it's just not the same type of game. That's my point I'm trying to make here. Alright, the gameplay is not strong enough to enforce all this extra stuff, right? I mean, just as my final point, alright, my final example, because I've gave like 9 examples at this point, I want to make it very clear. The levels themselves telling the story of the Skywalker Saga within the movies broke down into individual levels works really well. So far, I think I've laughed at like 5 jokes, which, I mean, I'm not the target audience for this game. I mean, I'm a Star Wars fan, so I mean, I'm kind of the target audience, but like the age range, that's not there, right? So that's understandable. But there are some funny jokes in here, all right? And so that's really good. They've changed a lot of things. It all works really well when you're playing the on-rails LEGO Star Wars experience, all right? When you change into the Ubisoft open world, you know, Breath of the Wild, 400-hour, you know, that's what doesn't work here. All right. Now, if you're just gonna go through and play your movie levels, that's fine, right? You're gonna love this game. It'll be great. It's a good $60 worth. There's plenty of content there. You'll enjoy it. But if you're a completionist, you want to go through and do everything, well, it's gonna be a rough time because you're gonna get bored of the gameplay real fast. But like I said, first impressions, way too long, but I just wanted to get that out there. So you guys let me know what you think of the game so far, what movie trilogy you started in, the originals, the sequels, or the prequels, which one is your favorite and why it's not the sequels, and make sure you guys subscribe so you can come back and see the full review when I've played through everything. But that's just my thoughts on it. Guys, let me know what you think down in the comments below, and I'll see you guys on the next one.